All right, team, welcome. Today, we're really going to level up your troubleshooting game on the Catalyst 9800. I'm talking about moving way beyond just checking basic syslogs. We're diving into the advanced toolset, the stuff that lets you solve those really tough issues. You know, the ones that don't leave any obvious clues. So let's get right into it. So let's kick things off with a scenario that I'm sure trips up a ton of engineers. Imagine this. A key user, maybe a VIP, is telling you their Wi-Fi is failing. But when you go check the syslogs, there's nothing. Zip. It's totally clean. Now this right here, this is where we separate the pros from the rookies. Knowing the right tool for this exact situation makes all the difference. Okay, before we start pulling out the fancy tools, we've got to understand the battlefield. See, pretty much every problem on the 9800 happens in one of two fundamental places. And if you don't know the difference, you're just shooting in the dark. Knowing this is step one to figuring out where you should even start looking for clues. So here's an easy way to think about it. You've got the control plane and the data plane. The control plane, that's the brains of the operation. It's like the air traffic control tower. It's making all the big decisions, handling AP joins, authenticating clients, managing all those mobility events. Then you've got the data plane. That's the brawn. It's the runway system, just moving planes, or in our case, user traffic, at line rate, super fast. Your problem is going to be in one of those two spots, and the tools we're about to cover will help us pinpoint exactly which one. All right, so now that we've got our map of the battlefield, let's officially start our investigation. Our first stop, the control plane. We need to figure out what the heck the controller was thinking right when our user's issue happened. So the most powerful and honestly the most overlooked feature here is always-on tracing. I want you to think of this like the flight data recorder on an airplane. Every single control plane process on the 9800 is constantly logging to its own little buffer. It's always on, always recording, even when you aren't looking. And this, right here, this is the absolute game changer. You no longer have to go to a frustrated user and say, hey, can you make it happen again for me? Nope, you can just go back in time. The controller has already recorded all the evidence for you, showing you exactly what happened, maybe hours or even days ago. So let's be really clear on this. Syslog is great for the big picture, CPU alarms, major system errors, that kind of stuff. But always on tracing, that gives you the granular, detailed story for one specific client or one specific AP. So when a user says, I couldn't connect an hour ago, this is your absolute go-to tool. Now to actually pull this magic data, you're going to use this command. See how we're filtering on a specific MAC address? This command is literally your time machine. It dives into all those separate flight recorders, pulls out every single log related to your client, and then stitches them together into one chronological story in a text file. This command is about to become your new best friend, I promise. Okay, but what if the problem is happening right now? What if you need to see live, debug-level info for just one device without totally flooding your logs with junk? Well, let's zoom in with a much more targeted tool. This is what we call radioactive tracing. I want you to think of it like injecting a special dye into the network that only sticks to one device. It lights up every single interaction that client has across every process in the controller and streams all of that super deep debug-level information into one single log file that you can watch live. Yeah, another way to think about it is like attaching a GPS tracker to a specific client's traffic. This is how you isolate one suspect in a huge sea of network traffic and track their every single move. It's perfect for those really tricky issues like roaming failures or sticky clients, where you need to see the nitty-gritty details between the client, the AP, and the controller as they happen. And the GUI makes this incredibly simple. I mean, look, it's just 4 steps. You navigate to the tool, you pop in your client's MAC address, you hit Start, and then you just ask the user to make the problem happen again. As soon as they do, you click Stop and Generate. That's it. In less than a minute, you have a deep dive diagnostic log ready to analyze. Now, for all of you who live in the command line, it's just a 2-step process. First, you set your target with the debug platform condition command, just specify the client's MAC. Then you kick off the capture with debug platform condition start. Simple as that. And listen up, because this is probably the most important step of all. Always clean up after yourself. As soon as you have the data you need, stop the trace and run this command. Clear platform condition all. Seriously, leaving a debug running is like leaving a fire hose on in your server room. It eats up CPU cycles and it can really impact performance. So always turn it off. So sometimes, logs just aren't enough.
They tell you what the controller thinks happened, but not what was actually on the wire. For that, we need the ultimate source of truth, a packet capture. This is where embedded packet capture, or EPC, comes in. It's basically an onboard network sniffer. It lets you grab the raw forensic evidence right from the controller's data plane, no external tools needed. This is absolutely invaluable when you suspect there's a misconfiguration or maybe even a software bug. And the process is super straightforward. You use the monitor capture start command to get things rolling. Then, just like with our radioactive trace, you replicate the problem. As soon as it happens, you run monitor capture stop, and then you just export the file as a .pcap. That file is now your complete forensic record of everything that happened on the wire. So once you have that PCAP file, you can pull it off the controller and open it up in some really powerful offline tools. Wireshark is the industry standard, and if it's not in your toolkit, it absolutely should be. It lets you dissect every single packet and get to the real root cause. Okay, so we've covered the individual tools in our detectives toolkit. Now, let's put it all together into a master plan, a repeatable workflow that you can use every single time you're up against a tough issue. This right here is your standard operating procedure for handling any log file. Step 1, generate the file on the controller. Step 2, immediately copy it off to an external server. This lets you analyze it without bogging down the controller, plus you can share it with the team. Step 3 is the fun part, the analysis. And Step 4, this is critical housekeeping, delete the file from the controller's flash. Flash storage is not infinite, and leaving old log files on there is a surefire way to cause problems down the road. And here is your triage checklist. This is how you instantly know which tool to grab for which problem. If it's a single client having an issue right now, you start with a radioactive trace. If the issue happened in the past, your first stop is the always-on trace. And if you're seeing system-wide instability, you always start with the big picture in syslog. This is going to help you get to the right tool right away, no time wasted. And finally, just a few key rules to live by. First, be specific with your debugging. Always target a single MAC instead of turning on global debugs that spam everything. Second, be brief. Stop your traces as soon as you have the data. And third, be clean. Always clear your log files from flash. Following these simple practices will keep your controller healthy, happy, and high-performing. So there you have it. You now have the full detectives toolkit for the Catalyst 9800. From the historical logs of always-on tracing, to the live GPS of radioactive tracing, and all the way to the forensic evidence of EPC. Now go solve those tough cases.